after the game. For more on the 49ers, we say hello to Shannon Spake.
Well, hey there, Joe. You know, I did try to catch up with Chip Kelly before the games and ask him about those reports. He didn't want to talk. He wanted to focus on this game. But one thing he did tell us this week is despite everything that these players have been through, 13 losses, off-field drama, this is a locker room that has remained united. Every player that we spoke to this week said the exact same thing. They said this is a close group of guys. Kelly said that they have a rule here. It's a no-blame rule. They do not point fingers. He said at this level, with this much invested, that's the way it should be.
And trying to win back-to-back games for the first time in 2 seasons today. Fresh off of snapping the franchise record 13-game losing streak with a comeback win in Los Angeles last week. Colin Kaepernick had the 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns and the game-winning 2-point conversion run. So again, the Seahawks need a win and a Falcons loss to wrap up the 2 seed in the first-round bye. And off we go from Santa Clara. Ja'Cory Shepherd takes a knee. And San Francisco will begin at the 20-yard line with Colin Kaepernick, who took over Week 6 for Blaine Gabbert after his 1-4 start and got his first win in LA last week.
Yeah, and it was in large part because of him utilizing one of his greatest strengths, his mobility. Once he gets out in open space, he is a dangerous runner. You got to believe that the Seattle Seahawks are going to want to try to keep him bottled up, keep him within the pocket, not get outside and try to make any big plays.
7 yards per carry for Kaepernick. And the 49ers to start at the 25. And Kaepernick off play action on first down. Will take off and get hit and dropped at the line of scrimmage by KJ Wright. Now this 49ers offense has been decimated by injuries. They've lost 6 season opening starters to injuries and a few others as the year's gone on.
And no one knows any more important than Carlos Hyde, almost at 1,000 yards rushing. He was really the key to this offense and their most special and talented player out of the backfield.
One of the NFL's top rushing offenses behind Hyde, but dead last throwing the football. This is Sean Drone with the ball on the ground at the 21, and Seattle has it. Bobby Wagner recovered it.
When you talk about the lack of your starting running back in Carlos Hyde, that becomes incredibly important when you're running these zone read schemes when you've got a quarterback trying to put the ball in the running back's stomach, get a mesh, get a feel. And there's a chemistry there between the running back and the quarterback. And there's a feel. And clearly, Sean Drone doesn't have quite as much experience working with Colin Kaepernick and vice versa.
And so the Seahawks teed up at the 49ers' 21-yard line to start this game. Trying to build off the momentum of the second half last week. Trying to find consistency entering the postseason. And they begin with a Thomas Rawls run into the teeth of the 49ers defense for a short game. Russell Wilson, a season-high 350 yards last week with 4 touchdowns, but in a losing effort against Arizona.
You look at the completions, attempts, interceptions, all career highs, and that's in part because of the lack of a running game. Haven't gotten great protection, so he's had to adjust a little bit. A lot more has been thrown on his shoulders this season.
Finally starting to feel healthy. Up and down here for him, battling those injuries early.
Keep an eye on Jimmy Graham.
Seahawks would love to get him going again. In his direction they go. And he's got a reception shy of the first down, bumped out by Rashard Robinson. It's only Graham's 5th catch over the last 3+ games.
Yeah, but you getting down this area of the field, his size, his catch radius, and his ability down the red zone, really is second to none. He's one of the toughest guys to stop. You heard the San Francisco staff talk about how they're going to go about trying to stop the Seattle Seahawks in the red zone. They're going to have to bracket him. They're going to have to rely on trying to get him off track early when he's split outside running right.
Empty set on 3rd and short. On the slant, off of the hands of Graham, and it's 4th down. Little bit behind him. And here comes the field goal team.
You see the versatility of Jimmy Graham. You can split him out there and he can run routes just like a wide receiver. But what happens is the timing of a quick hitting play like that gets messed up when you're a quarterback and you have to go back into the shotgun. It's not as quick when you're under center. You can get the ball right away and get the ball out of your hand. That half second made a difference, caused the football to be behind.
Special teams a big issue last week. And the loss against Arizona. Stephen Hauschka knocks this one through to start the scoring. That is fifth missed extra point after they had tied the game in the closing minutes. But he opens this one with a made field goal.
Today's game is sponsored by Southwest. Yes to low fares with nothing to hide. That's transparency.
Well, Seattle settles for a field goal on its opening drive that began at the 21 after the 49ers fumbled on their first possession. Hauschka sends it away. And it's Raheem Mostert making his NFL debut today, taking a knee.
Mostert takes a knee for the touchback.
So across the NFL today, the Patriots taking care of business and wrapping up home field advantage throughout the postseason. In the AFC, Tony Romo got some action. And then how about the Browns and the Steelers, a game that 49ers fans had eyes on with the whole draft situation. The Browns had a chance to win that game and got shut down in overtime.
Yeah, unfortunately, got down around the goal line, first possession there in overtime, and were forced to kick a field goal, and Pittsburgh Steelers took care of the rest.
And so the 49ers will pick second in the NFL draft. Empty set for Kaepernick and the 49ers to start this drive. He's got time to throw, and a man comes loose. It's DeAndre Smelter for his first career reception. Out to the 48 and a gain of 23.
The Seattle Seahawks only rushed 3. They gave Colin Kaepernick a ton of time within the pocket. He was patient, went through his reads, and found the wide open DeAndre Smelter.
And they have gone deep into the wide receiver depth chart as this year's gone on. No Torrey Smith, no Quentin Patton. And Smelter with the first reception of the day. Here's Kaepernick keeping into the arms of the NFL's leading tackler, Bobby Wagner, on a gain of 4.
Clearly early on, they want to try to get Colin Kaepernick to the edge, try to get him outside if they can, whether that's in the running game or even in some of the play-action pass game, as we've already seen a couple of boots. It's where Colin Kaepernick's able to be so effective, and he's really taken care of the football this season in the passing game. It's because of his running ability.
Saw a moment ago the Falcons with an early touchdown over the Saints. On 2nd and 6. Kaepernick again with time. And he hits a crossing Jeremy Curley, San Francisco's leading receiver, having a career year in his first year with the 49ers, and a first down to the 34.
Yeah, when you look at the San Francisco 49ers roster, I mean, the guy who got here in May was Aaron Burbridge. Everyone else was brought in after that point. And Burbridge was a draft pick this year. They got him in the 6th round. So this is a group that really, it's taken some time to try to get a feel for Chip Kelly's offense and a feel for working with Colin Kaepernick.
They got Curley in a trade towards the end of training camp and spent the preseason with the Lions. John Drone tackled by Cam Chancellor. On a gain of 2. Here's Carissa Thompson with the day's first game break.
Thanks, Joe. Atlanta's first drive of the game. Matt Ryan, a 7-yard touchdown pass to Tevin Coleman. Falcons secure a first-round bye with a win today. Let's send it back to Joe, Brady, and Shannon. Welcome to the NFL family.
Yeah, Happy New Year to Carissa. And again, Falcons trying to wrap up that 2 seed. They lose. It opens the door for Seattle. On 2nd down, play action for Kaepernick. Across his body, hits a crossing drone. And Sean Drone is inside the 10. Pushed out by Jeremy Lane. It's first down and goal for San Francisco.
And this is the progression that you want to see from Colin Kaepernick. Him being patient enough to go through the play-action pass fake. And as Colin Kaepernick kind of drifts and buys a little bit of time, Sean Drone slips out of the backfield. That's on Bobby Wagner. He should have been covering Sean Drone at the play-action fake, but his eyes got Colin Kaepernick thinking he was going to run.
DeJuan Harris in the game at running back.
I still don't get used to this, seeing players look over to the sidelines. Oh, it's always it's college football.
High snap pulled down. Harris spins out of a tackle inside the 1, and it's second down. Cassius Marsh with the stop.
You know, for all the talk and the rumors that are swirling on, going on or out there, as we take a look at the last play, you know, this team's still fighting and playing hard. And there's evidence of that last week as they beat the LA Rams, had to come back in the fourth quarter. A few weeks ago, playing the New York Jets, a close loss, but a game that went into overtime, and this team has not given up. Spent some time with them during practice, and they're still fighting. They're still trying to do all they can to try to win games.
Drone back in there. He's got it at the goal line. And in. Touchdown, San Francisco.
And watch the push that they get up front, in particular from center, Zane Beatles. This may shock some people, but look, he's played tackle, he's played guard. This is his second start now at center for San Francisco. That's the situation that they've been in up front for this team. They've sustained a ton of injuries this year, and he has transitioned into it easily and has done a good job of helping to create some running lanes, getting the calls right, and getting everyone on the same page up front. One
of the MVPs of this team with all the injuries they've had on the offensive line and the versatility he's been able to show. And Phil Dawson on for the extra point. '18-year NFL veteran hooks this one just through. 49ers go 75 yards in 7 plays, capped off by a Sean Drone touchdown and an early 7-3 lead.
Is sponsored by Bud Light. Strike gold and you can win Super Bowl tickets for life.
Is kicking off for the 49ers. Number 30, J.D. McKissick is deep for Seattle.
7-3 game after the Sean Drone touchdown run, putting San Francisco in front. And this one bounces through the back of the end zone for a touchback. We're just 1 week away from the start of the NFL playoffs, and our coverage begins with an NFC wildcard matchup next Sunday here on Fox. And the only sure thing, even the final day of the regular season here right now in the NFC, is that the Giants will be the 5 and the Cowboys will be the 1, but everything else still up for grabs.
San Francisco 49ers.
That includes where the Seahawks will be, whether they'll be the 2 seed, the 3, or the 4. 4 is the worst case scenario, but they will host one way or another. From the 25-yard line, J.D. McKissick with his first NFL touch. Goes for a gain of 1. Rookie from Arkansas State, the latest guy to try and get this ground game going.
Yeah, and look, the issue has been a number of things. They've had a bunch of different backs that they've rotated through. I mean, heck, the leading rusher for the Seahawks this year, he actually plays for the Green Bay Packers now, Christian Michael. And their offensive line's been inconsistent. So there's been a lot of different things that have played a factor in the lack of production.
On second down, here comes Thomas Rawls, and he's shut down. No gain for Rawls. Been dealing with a shoulder injury. He's missed time with a fractured leg, and so he's only played in half of the games, and there are the numbers you mentioned. Rawls and Wilson are the only active guys on this list today.
How often do you see that? And you may see him in the playoffs at some point if things work out a certain way, but you mentioned Thomas Rawls. He hasn't played a full season since he was in high school. Even in college, was first at Michigan, then Central Michigan, never played a full season, and hasn't so far here in the NFL.
3rd and 8. 49ers rush 4. Wilhoit getting pressure on Wilson, who has to toss it to the sideline, and it's 4th down.
And that was just good coverage downfield by the San Francisco 49ers. Really no one open downfield, and you look at the options that are out there. I mean, everyone's covered up for the most part, and at that point, Michael Wilhoit is able to pressure Russell Wilson enough to force him to throw it away.
Number 9.
This is statistically the worst defense in the NFL, and so far they started to drive back into their own end, held Seattle to a field goal, and here forced a 3-and-out. John Ryan on to punt it. Good one, all the way back to the 10, into the hands of Jeremy Curley. And Curley with a solid return to the 21-yard line. A 75-yard touchdown drive the last time this offense was out there. Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers back to the field when you come back.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by the all-new 2017 Ford Super Duty. This is the next level. By the $10 any pizza carryout deal, only at Pizza Hut. And by Samsung Pay. Turn your phone into your wallet.
Back in the Bay Area, where San Francisco has a 7-3 lead over Seattle midway through this first quarter. And the 49ers back to work at the 21. An efficient start for Colin Kaepernick. 3 of 3 on that touchdown drive. Kaepernick pulls off for the lead and has room to run for close to a first down. He does have enough on a gain of 10 as we check in with Carissa for a game break.
Thanks, Joe. Well, entering the day, there was a chance the Niners could get the #1 pick in the draft, but the Steelers down 3 in overtime. Landry Jones connects with Kobe Hamilton for that 26-yard score, making it official. The Browns will get the #1 overall pick. Joe?
All right, Chris, the Browns fans had to be watching that game like, really? Really? We will finally be okay losing a game and you're going to win? Up to grab it is Curley for a gain of 8. Stopped by Jeremy Lane, 2nd and 2.
I don't know if it would have worked out that way anyway with the way the 49ers are playing right now. I mean, it's early on in this game, but Colin Kaepernick's gotten into a rhythm. Seattle Seahawks haven't really done much to stop them at this point. That nice drive in the last series, really not the fumble. Who knows how that first series would have went.
So Seahawks defense #2 in the NFL. They've been one of the best in the NFL for a long time, but have had some issues since Earl Thomas went down a few weeks ago. Kaepernick has a wide open zone with blown coverage. First down inside the 35 on a gain of 23.
This is the second time now that a linebacker has not maintained his coverage on Chandrone. Here it is. And watch KJ Wright as we play out. Look, he kind of points out there like someone else should be responsible for him. The tough part is Rod Streeter was the receiver on the outside. When his route came inside, it basically left all that green grass and no one out there to cover Chandrone. So that responsibility then should fall on KJ Wright.
Gave up 34 last week, the Seahawks did. 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks before that, gave up 38 to the Packers. Kaepernick perfect so far. Time to set and throw for Chris Harper. And a first down gain of 5 to the 28.
As you watch the San Franciscos come to the line of scrimmage, one thing that we kind of talked about being odd is they all look to the sideline. Now, besides Colin Kaepernick, because he's got the radio in his helmet, so he's being communicated to from the sideline. But the interesting thing is it's always after that 15-second mark. Why is that important? Well, that's because that's when it cuts off for the communication to the quarterback and for the defense as well, so it's harder for them to adjust. That's why they get that play in late.
There's a flag down as Kaepernick rolls and goes underneath. Rod Streeter has a first down, but we'll see what the flag is.
Kaepernick pass complete to number 81, Rod Streeter. Flag on the field.
Everything you're seeing right now is horizontal. Stretching the field horizontally. They're hoping to be able to get guys out in space to make catches and get yards after the catch.
Offense. 2 players in motion and didn't stop prior to the snap. 5-yard penalty and repeat, 2nd down.
It's one of the problems when you try to go up-tempo. This obviously occurred before Rod Streeter started in motion.
10 at the Seattle 33-yard line.
You're trying to kind of push the tempo sometimes. When you're in these no-huddle systems, you just got to make sure everyone's set before you send that guy in motion, especially when you have a shift before that.
49ers not working nearly as quickly as they did at the start of the season, though. As Kaepernick keeps again and slides down crossing the 30, doing every bit they can to help out this defense that's been on the field, even with them slowing it down more than any other in football.
And that's one of the issues that I think, Chip Kelly's battle is this offense plays at such a tempo and pace that their defense is going to naturally see more stats. It's tough to deal with, but big third down here. And it's the guy they've really liked to try to work towards is Jeremy Curley. The problem is he's matched up on Richard Sherman, and I don't think Colin Kaepernick's going to work that way.
Sherman's been better than any DB in the NFL against Kaepernick. On 3rd and 6, Seattle brings only 4. Still gets pressure. Curley's the crosser. Near the marker. He's spotted short. Pulled down by Sherman. It's 4th and less than a yard. And if you put yourself in Chip Kelly's shoes with what's going on lately, I bet he's going to go for it.
Well, here's the matchup, and they're trying to create a natural pick or a natural rub with Curley coming underneath of Selleck, and that gives more room between Curley and Richard Sherman. Now Sherman, look, he's one of the best in the game, so he's able to close that gap and make the tackle. This is going to be close.
If it's not, though, aren't you going for it if you're Chip Kelly?
What do you have to lose at this point? And you're moving the ball, so that's the other caveat to it is maybe there's some speculation. You might not be around come tomorrow, so why not? Why not try to go out on a high note, take some chances, take some risks? To that point, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see some trick plays at some point. I mean, again, what's there to lose?
So he's about a foot short. And you bet he's going to go for it. Team loved when he decided to go for 2 last week in Los Angeles to win that game 22-21. And a no-brainer here on 4th down and short.
This is where Colin Kaepernick starts to become part of that rushing attack, depending on what they try to do here.
On 4th down and a foot. It's drone straight ahead, and it will be close. Tony McDaniel was in there to plug it. It's going to be really close.
I mean, my first inclination was I thought with forward progress, Drone had got it. The right side of the offensive line able to get good push and created a lane, but not for Tony McDaniel and him getting an arm around Drone to stop his momentum. I think he easily would have had the first down.
Just barely gets it. First down, 49ers. So they convert 4th down in less than a yard, and the drive keeps moving to the Seattle 23.
The team's fed off of the energy that Chip Kelly has brought. Through all the turmoil and the things that have been going on, he hasn't let it get to the team. I mean, it seems like these guys have been upbeat. He started to build a good culture in this locker room. As far as the reason why they've struggled this season, I mean, that's a whole different story. The injuries, changing of quarterback, all sorts of different things that happen when you're coaching a team for the first time.
And even to begin with, even before the injuries, this was not a very talented roster. Kaepernick with a deep drive. Here's Jeremy Curley dancing his way to the 20.
And to that point, that's why I think, from Jay Glazer's report, Trent Baalke at least should be on his way out. I mean, when you're looking at what Chip Kelly's been dealt with, he hasn't had a roster that they've really been able to do a ton with. And some of it's been injuries, but some of it have been the draft and some of the misses that Baalke's had.
Second down, 7. Drone has the San Francisco touchdown already. Here he's got a gain of 5 to make it 3rd and short. And again, if you're just joining us, Jay Glazer is able to confirm the report that Trent Baalke is on his way out. But according to Jay, not yet a sure thing that Chip Kelly will be let go. He's set to meet with management following the game. 2-13 right now in his first season as head coach here in San Francisco. It's Drone for a first down. First and goal, 49ers to the 7.
And that was the exact same play that they ran on second down. The difference here is they flipped the formation. Watch the interior left side of this offensive line. Look at that hole on the backside that Sean Drone's able to find for the first down.
Andrew Gardner, the left guard, sealing that thing off. He's playing in his first game of the season. This is how things have gone for the 49ers. They signed him less than 2 weeks ago. And now he's the starting left guard, and now he's committing a false start.
Neutral zone infraction, defense number 72. This penalty reassessed half the distance to the goal, and will remain first down.
Instead, it was Michael Bennett called for the penalty.
Look at those shoulder pads, or lack thereof, but watch right here. Michael Bennett, a little bit too quick off the ball, and that's part of the mechanics of the 49ers offense. They run a double cadence, meaning they're going to run a cadence. Sometimes they'll actually snap the ball, sometimes they'll look to the sideline to actually get a new play.
DeJuan Harris checks in for Drone. It's Harris right side, crashing his way to the 2. Second and goal.
Talked a moment ago about Andrew Gardner, their left guard for San Francisco. You know, this is the 6th different starting lineup for the offensive line for San Francisco this season. I mean, that's all the different injuries that they've had. We talked about Zane Beadles, who's playing center today. Typically, he plays guard. Versus Atlanta a few weeks ago, he was playing left tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been unbelievable the changes that this team has had to deal with, really on both sides of the ball with injuries.
Harris again, this time shut down. No gain, third down. Cam Chancellor with the stop.
You get the third down in this area of the field. Typically, you'd like to take a shot at a fade or a slant, someone on the outside. Problem is, the guy that they've targeted the most is Jeremy Curley. He's tiny. As he comes in the game right now, he's only about 5'9".
Yeah.
So it's tough to find that sort of window to be able to get him the football unless you design that. That's why they've got to be able to run the football down here, and Colin Kaepernick has to become part of that.
Yeah, and they'll take a timeout here in the closing minute of this first quarter.
They're first.
7-3 San Francisco. 49ers knocking on the door again. You can watch every live 2017 NFL playoff game in HD, all data free on NFL Mobile. 13th play of the drive coming up for San Francisco. They've controlled the ball for about 12 minutes of the 15 in this first quarter.
A couple ways to look at this situation. Talked about the lack of size on the outside. You know, one way of getting Colin Kaepernick on the edge is trying to run some sort of boot action where you give him the opportunity to keep the football running in or throw the football. Keep an eye on Jeremy Curley down there in the slot. He's the guy they like to target.
Shut down again. Cam Chancellor. Fourth down and goal.
The four-time Pro Bowler sniffed this out the entire way. Watch Cam Chancellor on the snap of the football, see the opening, and finish off Sean Drone.
Well, that's a read play. That's a misread by Kaepernick.
Well, again, you can't necessarily always go into specifics of zone reads and all that, but it looked like he should have kept the football.
That brings this quarter to a close, and it'll be fourth and goal to start the second when you come back.
That is the end of the first.
Second quarter begins with a fourth down and goal for San Francisco, and Chip Kelly elects for the second time on this drive to go for it.
Why not? Everything's going your way right now. The only positive for Seattle today was basically a mishandled handoff, a zone read between Sean Drone and Colin Kaepernick, but they've seemed to have gotten that down now.
Seattle has stopped 13 of the 17 fourth down attempts against them this year.
Let's see if Colin Kaepernick keeps the football this time.
Drone downhill and in on fourth and goal. A San Francisco touchdown, his second of the day.
Well, it comes down to being a numbers game. And at the end of the day, when you've got a quarterback who's athletic like Colin Kaepernick, you have to keep someone out there for him. And because of that, it helps create easier running lanes and better angles for your offensive line.
A 14-play drive that lasts more than 8 minutes. The longest drive of the year for San Francisco. All 49ers so far in Week 17. 49ers trying to relive some of the glory days so far today. 14-3. 2017's been pretty kind to San Francisco. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Happy New Year to you. And if you look at the stats from the first quarter, we might not have been surprised to see those numbers, but completely flipped.
Other way around. Yeah, and Sean Drone filling in for Carlos Hyde, who was injured a week ago. And boy, he's really showed up so far. Over 70 yards of total offense, 2 touchdowns. And really it starts with the San Francisco offensive line. They've been getting after. They've been dominating the line of scrimmage so far. So maybe a bit surprising to some people, but look, this is kind of what we saw from Chip Kelly at practice earlier this week. This team is still playing hard, and they're still playing hard for their head coach.
And a bit more of the same for Seattle, and another slow start. This kickoff bounces out of bounds.
Now that's the mark of a 2-win football team.
The ball be placed at the 40-yard line. First down.
And Bradley Pinion. We go down to Shannon Spake.
Well, Joe, you said it right there. Slow start. Something Seattle has really struggled with. But when we spoke with Russell Wilson this week, something he wasn't too concerned about because he looks more at the way that they finished, particularly last week. And he said it was the same group of guys in the second half that played in the first half, and they really turned it around. But when they just went to take the field, Brady, I know you were asking Wilson about Marcellus Reese, and he's had some real words of encouragement for these young guys.
And I spent some time with the Seattle Seahawks, and one thing Pete Carroll always talks about, you win the game in the fourth quarter. So they've traditionally been a good second half team.
Only their 7th offensive play of this game. And speaking of Marcel Reese, there he is, rumbling his way across the 45. Picked up in early December after 8 years in Oakland. Russell Wilson loves this guy.
Yeah, he's a guy who was kind of deemed a tweener when he came into the NFL. They thought he might have been too big for a wide receiver. Weren't really sure where to put him. And when he found his way to Oakland, ended up putting him at fullback. And they realized his versatility had some value to it. We can stick him outside. He can run routes like a wide receiver.
9th-year man out of Washington. Second down and short. '49ers bringing a blitz. It's picked up. Wilson with time to drill a first down throw to Kearse. Jermaine Kearse has had a tough year. That his first touchdown of the season last week. And here has his first catch of the day into 49ers territory.
Kearse known for his clutch catches throughout the past years. 2014, the playoffs, NFC Championship game. Go-ahead touchdown. Russell Wilson still has a lot of faith, a lot of trust in Jermaine Kearse, regardless of how this year has gone.
Here's Rawls into the short side of the field. Stopped by Ahmad Brooks, the 11-year veteran. The outside linebacker spot. A gain of 4 or 5.
Brooks has kind of had Russell Wilson's number. In the last 5 games they've played against one another, he's had 6 sacks in those 5 games.
And you see the Falcons with a 14-10 lead on New Orleans. Right now, though, Seattle has business of its own to take care of. Down 14-3 early. Doesn't matter what happens in that game if the Seahawks don't win here. Paul Richardson set to see an increased role with Tyler Lockett's injury. He, like Kearse, had his first touchdown of the year last week.
Similar skill set to Lockett. Paul Richardson can help out in the return game, but as a wide receiver, he has got blazing speed. He's been hampered with some injuries, an ACL and a hamstring injury in the past couple seasons, but he's a guy who can really stretch the field vertically.
From the 33-yard line, Wilson to throw. Richardson again, first down to the 15, working against Rashard Robinson. Time for a quick game break with Carissa. Carissa.
Thanks, Joe. Giants up 3-0. Eli hands it off to Rashad Jennings for this 2-yard score. Redskins loss puts the Packers and the Lions in the playoff. Seeding would be the only thing left to determine. Giants up 10-0. Joe?
All right, Carissa, New York locked into that 5 seed. Washington would be in with a win, barring a tie between Green Bay and Detroit tonight. From the 15, Thomas Rawls hit in the backfield, able to stretch forward for a gain of 1. Chris Jones, the first to hit him. Guy that was acquired in early November off waivers from Miami.
He's continued to step up his play the past couple weeks. Six tackles a week ago. Kind of see him always penetrating, always finding his way around the opposing quarterback.
Only 3 guys on this defense, Brady, have started every game this year, and so it's opened the door for guys like Chris Jones to make an impact.
At what point are they going to start hitting Doug Baldwin though? Doesn't have a target yet.
Wilson runs, stopped by Hodges. It'll be 3rd down. Baldwin was the guy last week. 13 catches, career high for him.
Really the last 2 weeks. His 18 catches total, a couple touchdowns. He's been the leading wide receiver as far as receptions, yards, and all of that this year. They need to start getting him involved in this game. He's yet to have been targeted. And again, Jimmy Graham and Doug Baldwin, those are the 2 guys that like to try to work the football to in the red zone.
Baldwin split to the top. Graham, the tight end, to the bottom. And Wilson's got to burn a timeout. The play clock was running out.
Timeout.
It'll be 3rd and 8 for Seattle on the other side.
Today's game is sponsored by Chevrolet. More 2016 J.D. Power Dependability Awards than any other brand.
A lot of Seahawks fans in the house today. 3rd down and long coming up here for Seattle.
Come on, Jimmy Graham.
They flood the right side of the field. Wilson looks left. Stays alive. Floats one. Back of the end zone and incomplete. And the field goal team will have to come out for the Seahawks offense that time and time again this year has stalled inside the red zone.
Well, Russell Wilson wanted to try to get the ball to Doug Baldwin, but they're bracking him. That means they're using 2 defenders on him. You see one on the inside, one on the outside. And Wilson was patient, but really just nowhere to go with the football. And Ahmad Brooks was eventually trying to come around to get him.
Wilson 5 of 8 to begin. And Hauschko hit from 31 on Seattle's first possession. Attempts this one from 32. And he's made both. So Seattle settles for a field goal in a 14-6 game in Santa Clara. Richard Sherman and the Seahawks in a 14-6 hole to San Francisco early on in the 2nd quarter. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Shannon Spake back in Santa Clara. They settle for a Hauschka field goal, his 2nd of the game. And a short kick to be taken to the 10. It's Mostert shy of the 20.
31, Raheem Mostert on the return, brought down by number 41, Dewey McDonald.
And so the 49ers will start at the 19-yard line. With his 14-6 lead, we talk about Chip Kelly and the reports this weekend that he'd be fired. Only one time in NFL history has a team fired coaches after one season, back-to-back years. And, of course, they fired Jim Tomsula last year. It was the 49ers in the late 70s, the only franchise to do that consecutive seasons. On 1st and 10, Kaepernick, time to throw, but the coverage solid, so he takes off. Trying to get around Wagner, but can't. Tremendous closing speed from the NFL's top tackler.
Wagner and Colin Kaepernick are very familiar with one another, not only because they've been division rivals, but going back to their days at Wagner at Utah State and Colin Kaepernick at Nevada, faced off a number of times. He said he's well aware of the fact that when Colin Kaepernick gets outside the pocket, he's not trying to throw the football. He is a runner. That's what he was in college. He goes, and that's what I still think he is to this day in the NFL.
452 rushing yards on the year coming in. Sean Drone hit in the backfield and dropped. It's Wagner again. What a season this guy's having. Not just leading the NFL in tackles, but a new franchise record, 156 in the number of tackles coming in.
Well, and one of the reasons why he's so effective is when he's able to read and diagnose plays. He played running back early on in his career, high school, a little bit into college, and he said that helped him actually understand the blocking schemes and things that he was going up against as a linebacker.
Fifth-year man, Pro Bowler for the third consecutive year. On 3rd and 10 against a four-man rush, Kaepernick gets rid of it just in time for a first down and more to the rookie out of Michigan State, Aaron Burbridge. Up to the 43 on a 24-yard gain.
Well, I believe Richard Sherman got picked off at one point. Watch number 25 here. You see, that's why you utilize these bunch formations, because it creates all this traffic. And look at that as Richard Sherman goes aerial. He gets taken out and then allows Aaron Burbridge to be wide open.
On to the 7th catch of the season for Burbridge. First down from the 42. Drone slipping his way to the 48.
One of the tendencies of the Seattle Seahawks with their defense, which you can call it simple, call it what you want. They play a lot of post-high safety. There's one guy in the middle of the field, but when you get in these condensed formations, when you get these bunches or stacks as they call it, they lock their defensive backs to the guy across from them. A bunch of different ways of playing it, but that allows all those different crossing routes and pick routes to have an effect.
49ers out, gaining the Seahawks 184 to 56. Dewan Harris loses the football, and it's picked up by Frank Clark. Frank Clark stays on his feet to the 15. The play that the Seahawks desperately needed comes from its defense.
Rolling on the field was fumble recovered by Seattle. First down.
The second-year player out of Michigan. Boy, has he had an impact on this defense. And you can see it's a Tuba Rubin ripping the football out. And there's Frank Clark to pick it up. Rubin, who signed with the Seahawks last year, has been a very stout force at the defensive tackle position for the Seattle Seahawks. But comes up with the big forced fumble there.
Second fumble today from a running back not named Carlos Hyde. And again, Hyde out with the MCL injury. Rubin forces the fumble. Clark picks it up. First down and 10, Seattle at the San Francisco 15.
Seattle only 8 rushing yards so far today. They've got to find a way of running the football more effectively.
Alex Collins, rookie from Arkansas, in for the first time. He swings out. Wilson stands in and dumps it to him. Will Hoyt with a stop at the 11. 2nd and 6.
You know, not many quarterbacks can do some of the things that Russell Wilson can do, and people probably think I'm talking about his athleticism. It's his ability to throw the football in such weird angles. And that time, he didn't even have his body squared to the throw. He just kind of flicked the football out there with his wrist, and it comes from his baseball background, given the fact that he played, I believe, second base, shortstop, kind of middle infielder. But it makes him so effective throwing the football.
6 of 9 so far. On 2nd and 6, they'll look to throw again. Zips into the end zone for a touchdown to Luke Wilson. Promptly taking advantage of the takeaway.
All the attention in this area of the field goes to number 88, Jimmy Graham. And it started off because he went in motion. So once he goes in motion, it then frees up Luke Wilson to be able to have leverage as the defense adjusts and everyone tries to keep their eye on number 88. Helps too when you have a guy like Russell Wilson who can throw that fastball in there for the touchdown too.
Second one of the year for Wilson. For Luke Wilson, that is. Russell gets his 21st touchdown throw.
And Luke Wilson played a little baseball in his day. He used to be on the Canadian national team.
Hauschka's extra point is good, and it's a one-point game. The Seahawks have converted a pair of San Francisco fumbles into 10 points and a one-point game in Santa Clara.
This game is sponsored by Hidden Figures. Friday, only in theaters.
Seahawks back to within one. Wilson to Wilson, taking advantage of their second takeaway of the day. They converted those two San Francisco fumbles into 10 points. Hauschka with a high kick. It's taken at the 1. And Ja'Cory Shepherd steps out of a tackle, stiff arms Terrell, and tiptoes to the 30. And the Seattle defense comes back to the field, having forced a pair of turnovers today. One of the top Ds in the NFL, leading Seattle back so far.
Today's game is sponsored by Mobile Strike. Download right now, free from the App Store.
Networking partner, Croquet.
One-point game, 6:45 left first half here in this Week 17 matchup between the Seahawks and the 49ers. And San Francisco outgaining Seattle by 100 yards so far, but the equalizer, the 2 turnovers. Got those 2 touchdown drives, but a pair of fumbles have led to 10 of the Seahawks' 13.
The 49ers in the bottom half of the turnover margin in the NFL this season, so not very surprising.
Her 2-13 squad trying to get back-to-back wins to finish this year. Kaepernick throws underneath to Rod Streeter. The touchdown to bring them within 1 against Los Angeles before Kaepernick's game-winning 2-point conversion run. Streeter started his career in Oakland. He's gone quiet for a couple of years, but a nice resurgence this year for him. By the way, that 10-for-10 start for Kaepernick, the best of his career. John Drone slips out of a tackle and gets a first down.
And when we had the chance to sit down with Colin Kaepernick earlier this week, one of the things he mentioned was just how everything's slowing down for him in the sense of the offense and operating Chip Kelly's system. And let's not forget, he was banged up, had a number of injuries over the offseason, wasn't really healthy coming in until the final preseason game. Blaine Gabbert was the starter to begin the season, and once he got his turn, that was really the first live reps he got within the system working in Chip Kelly's offense.
Play action on first down. Feeling the pressure from Wagner. Well, it's Curley who's defended by Lane, and it's 2nd and 10.
Because of the pressure from Wagner, that got Colin Kaepernick to have to move within the pocket, and he had Jeremy Curley early, but wasn't able to get it to him late. Bobby Wagner just getting around Sean Drone. Drone did all he could, but that's the thing about these linebackers, whether it's Bobby Wagner or KJ Wright, they're good at everything. They're good against the run, they're good in pass coverage, but they can also get to the quarterback as well.
2nd and 10. Curley takes the fake. Kaepernick sets his feet, checks it down to Curley. He's got 4, and it'll be 3rd down. Now, you mentioned the injuries Kaepernick was trying to overcome. He missed the final 2 months last year with a shoulder, and then 3 different surgeries during the offseason on his non-throwing shoulder, his knee, and his thumb, and he dealt with some dead arm during training camp and was just way behind coming into the year.
His weight was down, wasn't quite as big, and you're talking about a guy who likes to run and keep the football. You got to have all the extra poundage you can, just take all the hits.
3rd and 7. Seattle showing pressure. They bring it. Incomplete. Lane with the coverage on Curley. And Seattle's forced its first punt of the day.
We talked about it earlier, the way Seattle likes to play these bunches and stacks. Each guy is responsible for the guy across from him, but it's Jeremy Lane, number 20. He's able to find a way of getting a hand on Curley and disrupt the pass. A little early contact there, but No flag.
And here's an answer to a question. Who would return punts with Tyler Lockett out? Sherman's back there, and he joked around with us this weekend that he probably just going to fair catch it. And he wasn't kidding.
You mad, bro?
Not at all. I don't think Seahawks fans probably are either. America's fastest growing sports show is on FS1.
Tomorrow, we face Seahawks, Niners, and look ahead to the playoffs.
And I'll tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl.
Leave the predictions to the expert. Undisputed, 9:30 Eastern, FS1.
You want somebody sure-handed back there, but you don't want your all-pro corner getting hurt returning punts.
Yeah, he actually struggled in warm-ups when we were watching Richard Sherman. He had dropped a number of attempts trying to catch the football. There's a decent amount of wind here in the stadium, too, kind of circling.
He's had 3 career punt returns, included a long one last year against Chicago on a trick play. Thomas Rawls with a gain of 7. So that swirling wind, and maybe some sun too, no, there's no sun, just the swirling wind and maybe a lack of experience doing it, but you're right.
And it's almost in a counterclockwise rotation on the field, depending on which side you're on. The wind kind of pushes the football or it knocks it down. We were talking with the punters and the kickers before today's game, and they just said it's going to be interesting in the kicking game, depending on the wind and really which hash you're on.
Even Phil Dawson, the 18-year veteran, kind of looked at you with his palms up, like your guess is as good as mine what this wind's going to do. Second down, Wilson steps up, lets it go, leaving it short, but Baldwin comes back and makes the catch. His first of the day is a highlight reel reception for 41.
Well, he's one-on-one with Rashard Robinson. And you can see as Baldwin gets inside, it's really the technique in the route. Once he leans on Robinson,
for an injured player,
it creates the separation, but it's all the focus and concentration as Baldwin brings the football into his body. Just an amazing catch.
Back to Santa Clara in 30 seconds. Heck of a catch from Doug Baldwin, his first of the day. But injured on that play, Rashard Robinson, rookie out of LSU, still getting looked at.
It's not often you hear this, but we were talking with the defensive coordinator, Jim O'Neill, for San Francisco, and he said Doug Baldwin is a guy that you root for because ever since he got into the league, which he came in as a college free agent, he said he's gotten better every single season, and you can see that statistically. You can see that in the way he works on his craft and how he runs his routes. And he said, as much as it is a task of preparing to defend against him, he said, you can't help but root for the guy because of the way he's handled his job and his responsibility of continuing to get better every season.
And he's now within 1 reception, Brady, of Seattle's single-season record of 94. Bobby Ingram had 94 catches in 07, and he sits at 93 with that long one.
I wouldn't be surprised by the end of this game if he didn't have 100.
100 catches.
Yeah.
I had 13 last week. And in order to get 100 today, he'd have to have 8. Robinson helped off of the field, and unfortunately for San Francisco, this is not anything new. For the defensive player dealing with an injury. Look up and down the roster of the guys they've lost. Bowman, their leader, out with an Achilles injury in early October. They lost Eric Armstead up front. They lost Eric Reed in the back end. Jimmy Ward at corner. Nick Ballore at linebacker.
Goes on and on and on, and that's just a few. I mean, look, 18 guys, 19 guys. Doesn't count Ian Williams, who's defensive tackle for him that injury waived.
Wilson booty. Wilhoit pressures him, and a throwaway. Game break time. Hello again to Carissa Thompson.
Hello, Joe. We head back to Atlanta. They were already up 21-10 when Matt Ryan connects with Mohamed Sanu for this 10-yard score. His 3rd touchdown of the day so far. A win today in Atlanta can lock in a 2-seed and a bye. They're up 28-10. Joe?
How about the year he's having, Brady?
Unbelievable. I mean, you could make a case for Matt Ryan, I think, as good as anyone else in the field, that he should be able to win the MVP. And even without Julio Jones, he's still been spectacular this year.
Fox NFL Sunday guys this morning picked Matt Ryan as their MVP. Trying to lead Atlanta to that first-round bye. Wilson double clutches, feels the pocket collapsing, extends the play. One-on-one, Jimmy Graham posted him out and pulled it in, 1st and goal. The old basket basketball player used the box out for 42.
It looked like an alley-oop is what that was. Watch Russell Wilson. He's going to throw this. Jimmy Graham hasn't even turned around quite yet, but I think he had a feeling that Russell Wilson was going to keep trying to give him an opportunity.
70.
Does he get 2 feet down? He does. And there's not much you can do. I mean, Jimmy Graham is just such a big human being. At 6'7", 265 pounds. It's tough to stop.
And so first and goal. Here's Rawls behind Reese for the Seattle touchdown, and the Seahawks are back in front.
This is the kind of momentum you're trying to build as far as a team that's trying to make its way into the playoffs. Look at the firing off the ball by the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. You know, of all their inconsistencies, they've actually been pretty good in the run game. A little bit inconsistent at times, but that's where they excel. The pass protection is where I feel like they've struggled most, actually protecting Russell Wilson.
Now, last week, Wilson was sacked 6 times. He was hit another 14 times, and for the most part, clean today. Hasn't been sacked yet. Here's a blocked extra point. And so more of the same for the special teams for Seattle here down the stretch. The third kick of some variety they've had blocked over the last 2 games.
And Steve Hauschka's struggled at times as far as didn't feel confident getting the football through the uprights. Let's take a look at who got a hand on it.
Chris Jones.
Yeah, it looked like Chris Jones. And that was the interesting thing. Talking to San Francisco kicker Phil Dawson, when I asked him, hey, with the PAT rule and all that, you've kind of mixed it up. He's moved it from hash to hash and all of that. I said, why? He goes, because of our protection. There's times when I move it, if we're struggling at a certain point up front, so I'll actually change where I put the football if I'm concerned about a certain guy up front not protecting as well as he should.
I mentioned last week against the Cardinals all those issues they had in the special teams game. They wound up losing that game by 3, 34-31. They've been a relative strength when you think of Tyler Lockett in the return game. Hauschka very good normally. Good punter in John Ryan. The injury to Lockett, and then last week not good in that phase.
Talk about playoff football. You've got to have all 3 phases playing at a high level. And fortunately for Seattle, they haven't run the ball quite as consistent as they'd like to. And I think defensively, the surprising thing was last week how many big plays they gave up. 5 plays over 20 yards. You rarely see that from the Seattle Seahawks defense.
High kick. And Shepard brings it across the 20. They wound up losing that game by 3 against Arizona and losing control of their own destiny for the 2 seed. They had a field goal blocked by Rodney Gunter. John Ryan had a punt blocked. And then in the missed extra point with the game tied at 31, a high snap from Nolan Freese, the rookie. And he hooked that thing wide, and Arizona went down and hit the game-winning field goal. Chandler Catanzaro, his time expired. And put destiny in Atlanta's hands. And right now, Atlanta with a 28-13 lead on New Orleans. If that were the case, if Atlanta were to hang on to that game, Seattle with a win would be the 3, and with a loss would be the 4, and would host either way. From the 21-yard line, thrown off the right side for 2. Jaron Reed, the rookie from Alabama, with a stop.
And from talking to some of the players for the Seahawks before the game, you know, they didn't feel like that was the worst thing. They said, look, we've got a lot of experience. We've been to 2 Super Bowls for probably about 40% of the guys on this team. So we've been through it before, and sometimes it's not so bad kind of getting some momentum going, having a home game instead of getting that bye, not having to play for a couple weeks. Although I think they'd probably rather have the bye if they could.
Yeah. Especially with some of the injuries. Even Thomas Rawls was playing today banged up with that shoulder, and they'd love to get C.J. Procise back at some point. Drone again, this time for 4 or 5, bringing us close to the 2-minute warning.
This is the 2-minute warning.
Follow your favorite team all season long. Go to iTunes.com/NFL. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, and Shannon Spake. Happy New Year from here in Santa Clara, where the 49ers had a 14-3 lead, but Seattle has retaken the lead at 19-14. They're down in 2 for the 49ers coming out of the 2-minute warning. Colin Kaepernick, 11 of 13 in this opening half. And he'll throw on 3rd and short. Under pressure, Frank Clark grabbed him, and he lost the ball. They're back on top of it, but it's 4th and long. So Clark, who already has a fumble recovery today, stripped that one out of there and made it 4th down and 9.
One of the things they always try to teach you as a quarterback is keep 2 hands on the football. And look, at that point, Colin Kaepernick's running for his life. I'm not necessarily sure he was going to be able to. Let's see how he separates his arm. And at that point, the ball just kind of falls out. He was fortunate him and Zane Beadles were able to get on it. 2 guys who are responsible for touching it the most on offense. But Frank Clark, you really can't talk about the type of impact that he's had because he's helped provide depth on that defensive line. I mean, everyone knows about Michael Bennett. People kind of talk about that pass rush all the time with him and Cliff Averill, but Frank Clark's been the other guy that's been able to rotate in and get a lot of production from.
It's his 10th sack of the year. Breakout 2nd season for the former Wolverine. Pinion's 2nd punt. Richard Sherman fair caught the first one. This one he'll take and make a man miss. Return it for 7 yards. His 4th career return. Let's check in with Kurt Menefee for what's coming up at halftime.
Coming up on the Visa halftime, earlier today, New England wrapped up the AFC's home field advantage. Meanwhile, Oakland is playing right now. So is Kansas City. Both those teams trying to be the number 2 seeds in the playoffs. Join me for the Visa halftime report.
Happy New Year to Kurt. And the guys back in studio. Minute 38 from joining them. Seattle tries to tack on here.
Plenty of time. 1:38, 1 timeout.
4 down.
Drive starting at the 37. Wilson scanning the field. Lynch pressures him out of the pocket. And to the sideline, that is incomplete. Kurz thought he got his feet in, but no such luck.
Good coverage by Gerald Hodges. Russell Wilson was trying to work the football to Jimmy Graham, and Hodges undercut Jimmy Graham at the last second. That's why Wilson pulled that football back.
Well, 9 of 14 now. 146, couple of big chunks. A long one to Graham, long one to Baldwin, and a touchdown to Luke Wilson. Here's Jimmy Graham again. His 3rd catch of the day. He had only 4 catches over the previous 3 games coming in.
Down for the Seahawks.
Had a big game last time they played San Francisco, though. 6 receptions, 100 yards, a touchdown.
3rd and 5 against a 3-man rush with tight windows downfield. Wilson tucks it. Hit from behind. Reaches close to the 1st down, but it looks like his spotted a touch short. It was Ahmad Brooks who dragged him down.
Let's take a look and see when his knee's down. And that spot might have been even more favorable than what it actually was. You can tell, though, by Russell Wilson taking off right there. He's starting to feel closer to 100%. I don't know that he will
Timeout. San Francisco.
be able to get to that until probably after the season's finished.
Their second. A 30-second timeout.
San Francisco using a timeout, stopping the clock at 36 seconds. And we check in with Carissa for a game break.
Thanks, Joe. Well, from the NFC West to the AFC West in Denver, Trevor Siemian to Devontae Booker. The Broncos up 17-0. Then, give you an update here in San Diego. Alex Smith to Sharkhandrick West. Kansas City is up 17-10. Now, if these scores held, Oakland would drop to the 5th seed and KC would go to 2. Joe?
Huge as far as the AFC playoff picture and who wins the AFC West division. But the other interesting news is Gary Kubiak. Rumors that this might be his final season coaching with some health concerns. crazy New Year's with all the news about the head coaching changes or possibility of some.
And Jay Glazer has been working the phones back in LA. And this punt carries Curley out of bounds at the 14. So this has been kind of a back and forth game so far. San Francisco on its opening drive fumbled. The 49ers fans are thinking, here we go. Hauschka hit a field goal, made it 3-0. But then San Francisco, a couple of impressive drives, both capped off by Sean Drone touchdowns. And it was 14-3 49ers. Seahawks, though, charged back using some defense. Frank Clark returned this thing to the 15 and set up Luke Wilson's touchdown reception. Yeah, this long throw to Jimmy Graham inside the 5 set up the go-ahead score to Thomas Rawls, and it's 19-14 in the closing seconds of the first half.
It's all about the ball, Pete Carroll says. That's what he preaches, and that's the difference in this game. 10 points over 2 San Francisco turnovers.
Here's Drone again. He's been busy catching the ball out of the backfield today. His 3rd reception for more than 60 yards.
Takes him over 100 for total scrimmage yards in this first half.
Filling in for Carlos Hyde today, out with the MCL screen. Drone drops this one. Visa halftime report coming up in just a moment. Patriots rolling and clinching that 1 seed in the AFC. Cowboys will be the 1 seed in the NFC. The only other sure thing at this point is that the Giants are the 5. Where the rest of the teams fall still to be determined in this one and in the Falcons game and in that Packers-Lions game tonight.
A lot of people will be interested to see Packers-Lions, who's able to come away with a win in that matchup. Even a couple people in this booth up here.
Oh, yeah, our spotter, big Lions fan, right? Though a 19-14 game as his first half comes to a close in Santa Clara. We now go to Kurt Menefee in Los Angeles for the Visa halftime. In just a moment.
By Seattle with 2 seconds on the clock.
Tony Careni wants to make sure that Kurt has to wait just a touch.
Timeout was called. Timeout was called.
Tony's having to tell Kurt to sit down in studio, and he's having to tell the teams to come back to the field.
Timeout was called with 2 seconds on the game clock. This is Seattle's 3rd and final timeout of the first half.
Well, they don't roll over, so, I mean, maybe they're looking at trying to block a punt, make something happen. I mean, Richard Sherman's been the returner, but yeah, he just came out of the locker room.
Yeah. He didn't know this is part of the job description when he took over the punt returning duties.
If I had to bet, I'm thinking that Richard Sherman may fair catch this one if he's going to be back there to return it. And with 2 seconds,
they even put anybody back there?
Well, they're not going to punt. I mean, they're just going to run the clock out with the play here. Yeah, I'm not sure what the point really was of that, unless Pete Carroll just wanted to use up all his timeouts.
Sure. Yeah, Kaepernick waits for that clock to run out. And now we're done with the first half with the 19-14 score. This time, I promise, Kurt Menefee in Los Angeles for the Visa halftime, starting right now. Here are the first half moments brought to you by Febreze.
When you look at the San Francisco 49ers and really the way they played in the first half, it's been a couple of turnovers, 10 points. Seahawks have gotten off of turnovers. That's been the difference. That and the big plays. Jimmy Graham, 42-yard reception. Doug Baldwin, a 41-yard reception. Those have really been the difference in this game.
And those are the first half moments brought to you by Febreze, who welcome you back inside here in Santa Clara with the Seahawks have a 19-14 lead. And it was a little bit of the same for Seattle in that it was a slow start. Difference from last week is that they got it going a little bit sooner.
Yeah, they got it going early, and now they're trying to run the football more. I think Russell Wilson's gotten into a rhythm, and I think that's because their offensive line has provided better protection. We saw that really in the last couple of drives, and then really the running game. They haven't really got it going quite yet, but I would imagine the second half here, now that they've got a lead and they're getting the football coming out of halftime, they will do all they can to try to feed Thomas Rawls, feed Alex Collins, and get that running game going.
That first half, they ran it for just 20 yards on their 9 carries. Took advantage of the couple of fumbles from San Francisco. Capitalized off of 10, or to capitalize to 10 points of their 19. 49ers fresh off of snapping the franchise record 13-game losing streak against the Rams last week. Trying to come from behind, win back-to-back games for the first time in 2 seasons. While the Seahawks are fighting for playoff positioning. Although Atlanta has started to roll New Orleans 35-13. So at this point it looks like the Seahawks are playing for the difference between a 3 seed and a 4 seed. J.D. McKissick took a kickback for a touchdown in the preseason. This is his first regular season NFL game, and he's tackled by Jaquaski Tart at the 23. Hello again to Shannon Spake.
Hey there, Joe. Let's start with some injury reports for both teams. For the 49ers, Rashard Robinson was carted off to the locker room. He has a left ankle injury. He's questionable for return. Now on the other side for the Seahawks, their long snapper, Nolan Freese, he has an ankle injury as well, and if he cannot go, it will be the backup or the middle linebacker, Brock Coyle, who will snap that ball. Now, as far as adjustments, Pete Carroll said they were able to adjust to Kaepernick's movement up front. As far as the 49ers, they have to hold on to the football and put more pressure on number 3.
All right, we appreciate it, Shannon. And Seattle starts his second half on the ground with a gain of 2 to Rawls. So now 10 carries and 22 yards. And we talked about this during the first half. But over the previous 5 seasons, this was the #1 rushing offense in the NFL. And here in Week 17, they sit 22nd on the ground.
Yeah, and people can say, well, that's the Marshawn Lynch effect, meaning he's no longer with the team. It's the impact that it's had, but really to me it's been more of the lack of consistency at the offensive line and really at the running back position. They've had a number of injuries and different guys mixing in and out. It's tough to develop that chemistry when you don't have a consistent guy in there.
Wilson's first throw of the second half is a bubble to Doug Baldwin for 2, and it's 3rd and 5. Antoine Bethea and Keith Reese are combining in the stop. Up front for the Seahawks, all 5 starters, 3 or fewer years of NFL experience, and that includes a couple of rookies.
You dig a little bit deeper, you look at a guy like George Fant. I mean, a former basketball player, Western Kentucky. I mean, just a ridiculous story of how he got into the NFL. Is now playing left tackle, something he never did before this season. That's the blind side of Russell Wilson.
They're trying to protect it on 3rd and 5 of the Seahawks opening drive of the second. 49ers show blitz and drop into coverage, and Luke Wilson's second catch of the day goes for a first down. The first 3rd down conversion of the game for Seattle.
San Francisco chose to use a soft zone coverage. Russell Wilson is just too good working within this system if you're going to play that way. He does a nice job of looking defenders off with his eyes anytime they're in zone coverage. And he helps create windows to throw into. That's what he did on the last play to Luke Wilson.
Russell Wilson, 12 of 17, 162. A first down throw. Jimmy Graham can't hang on with the coverage coming from Dante Johnson, the guy that has taken over the cornerback spot, or at least moved into the lineup. He's at the nickel now with Robinson out of the game.
Really, that's just the drop. Jimmy Graham's got to be able to bring that football in. That's a good football. Tall task for Dante Johnson. Have to come in and cover one of the best tight ends in the game.
3rd-year man out of NC State. He's missed time recently with a groin injury. Pressed into action here with Rashard Robinson out. A blitz coming. Richardson on the outside. A flag flies as Tart makes the tackle out of the secondary.
Might be holding on Seattle, and the reason being is when you looked at Richardson when he got the ball in his arms, a little bit of tugging and pulling going on. The 2 other wide receivers were in that bunch formation to start the play.
Holding. Offense, number 89. 10-yard penalty. Repeat, 2nd down.
That's Doug Baldwin.
There's Doug Baldwin. As they kind of switch release, he just gets his hands on the outside of Tremaine Brock. See that left arm on the back? That's going to get called every single time. You got to keep your hands within their armpits, keep them inside. You can kind of grab and pull there.
A little Happy New Year bear hug. The 2nd and 17, and an empty set for Russell Wilson. Underneath J.D. McKissick, his first NFL reception is a gain of 11 to the 40. The running back and receiver at Arkansas State. How about a Sun Belt squad at Arkansas State with 2 players on this active roster, and J.D. McKissick and Kelsey McCray, one of the backup safeties.
Credit General Manager John Schneider, the job he does, making sure every stone's turned over to try to find these type of talented players across the country in the college landscape.
Picked up from Atlanta off waivers and activated this week. 3rd and 7.
Keep an eye on Doug Baldwin. No one over top of him right now.
All kinds of pre-snap movement and a timeout coming. Seattle wasn't totally on the same page. Back in a moment for 3rd down.
Today's game is sponsored by Southwest. Yes to low fares with nothing to hide. That's transparency. By the $10 any pizza carryout deal, only at Pizza Hut. And by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.
And America's game of the week back in the Bay. 3rd down for Seattle on its first drive of the second half. San Francisco trying to pull the upset to finish the regular season with back-to-back wins.
Keep an eye on this matchup. Doug Baldwin working versus Keith Reeser.
Marcel Reese comes into the backfield. 49ers show pressure and back off again. And Wilson spikes that one into the ground. And an incomplete signal finally given by Tony Correnti, the referee. And now some chippiness at the end of the play. There were a couple of officials who didn't make any signal, which led some of the 49ers to believe that that was a fumble, and then Correnti blew it dead.
Just a bizarre play the way this worked out. I mean, you could make the case when Russell Wilson goes to come around. He's trying to bring this football back in, but clearly his arm was moving forward as he lost control of the football.
One of those where you see it a little bit too late.
Yep. It's hard, man. Once you get started trying to pull that football back, it's tough to stop that motion.
Yeah, the whistle. They may take a look at this. Yep. Challenge flag is out from Chip Kelly.
San Francisco is challenging the ruling of the field of a forward pass versus a fumble.
So they will go under the hood, take a look, and see if this is indeed incomplete or if it's a fumble in San Francisco ball. So Chip Kelly challenged. And let's get the verdict from Tony Correnti.
After review, the ruling on the field of a forward pass has been confirmed. It will be 4th down for Seattle. San Francisco will be charged with their first timeout.
And so while he intended to pull the ball back in, the fact that the arm was coming forward means that that call is confirmed and it is incomplete.
And if you're Chip Kelly, what do you have to lose? Why not challenge it at this point in time, given the possibility of your future and the way the season's gone?
And Trent Baalke, the GM, reportedly already fired. There have been reports Chip Kelly will be fired following the game as well, but RJ Glazer telling us that's not a done deal, that there'll be a meeting with management, which could, of course, result in a firing. Just that it's not sealed yet. Jeremy Curley with a fair catch at the 23. Wednesday night, a huge college hoop showdown on FS1. Two of the best in the Big East. Villanova surviving at Creighton yesterday. Now they've got to go to Butler on Wednesday to Hinkle Fieldhouse to take on 13th ranked Bulldogs. Action tips off Wednesday, 6:30 Eastern on FS1.
We were talking with some of the San Francisco coaching staff before the game, and they were saying, look, they found out, from their phones, from all the different sources about some of the information that was going on after their team meetings. And look, it's a difficult situation to be in. I've been a part of teams that have been in this sort of scenario. And with all these rumors and things flying around, the thing you always have to remind yourself as a player is anytime I'm on the football field, that's going to be affecting my resume and what team I'm on next season, whether it's San Francisco or somewhere else.
That play's blown up. Cliff Averill never let it get going, and then KJ Wright finished off Sean Drone. They lose yardage and it's second down, and reportedly that's how Chip Kelly first heard that he was being fired too. Heard it through the media and got on the phone with Jed York. Not a pleasant conversation, as you would imagine, and no official verdict on what his future will be after today. 2-13 in his first season, first in a 4-year deal for him. They would be eating a lot of money if they cut him loose after this 1 year.
Still getting paid from Philadelphia as well.
Going to be on that Charlie Weiss money. Kaepernick floating one, drone stumbling incomplete. He got behind KJ Wright. Pressure coming from Michael Bennett, 3rd and long.
And the Seahawks are now really starting to kind of pin their ears back with this lead and get after and Colin Kaepernick. I think the San Francisco 49ers have to either do one of two things. Either give him more protection, start doing some 7-man protections where you keep your tight end and your running back in, or start moving him outside the pocket. You saw that earlier in the game. They had some success. Haven't seen it of late.
Kaepernick started the game 11 of 11, 1 of 5 6. And on 3rd and 15. Feeling pressure from a 4-man rush and a sack from Michael Bennett, who signed that extension this week. Has him a Seahawk through 2020. And like he promised his wife, no sack dance there, just the blow of a kiss.
$31.5 million he'll be making with the extension. But you see where he starts? Look at him wrap all the way around the outside to get Colin Kaepernick. That's in part because of the coverage downfield by the Seahawks secondary. Look at Bennett as he wraps up Kaepernick. I don't think he's wearing shoulder pads.
Yeah, that's an interesting look, isn't it? Pinion the punt out of his own end zone, and it was nearly blocked. Sherman back for a fair catch at the 41. Kevin Pierre-Louis just barely missed getting his hand on that. Wound up being a 50-yard punt. Teed up Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense after this break.
Today's game is sponsored by Verizon. Join the Better Network because better matters.
First quarter was dominated by San Francisco, but Seattle has taken a 19-14 lead and has the ball at its own 41. A play-action pass on first down. Wilson scrambles out, floats one. Curse has it in stride inside the 25.
And that's the creativity of Russell Wilson. When you look at this offense, they call a play, they go out there to run it, and as soon as things break down, watch him reverse field, but yet still keep his eyes downfield and find Jermaine Kearse. And this is where that all-important scramble drill comes into play, something that the Seahawks rep every single day because of Wilson's ability to make big plays like that.
Kearse's second catch of the day. And after a bit of a slow start, he's gotten it going. Same could be said the last couple of weeks for Seattle. Off of the boot, he has Jimmy Graham in the flats. Close to another first down and then crashing into a cameraman. We've had a couple of sideline personnel get bowled over today, and I guess that was a sign of things to come when we saw a camera person with ice on her knee prior to the game, even before the game started.
Oof, that was vicious. And this is exactly what it looks like if you're down there on the field, but in this case, this is one of our cameramen coming right at you in your living room.
Hope Joe's okay down there. Rawls will lose a yard on first down. Stopped by Aaron Lynch. Been a tough year for him. Started the season suspended for the violation of the NFL substance abuse policy. So missed the first 4 games for that. Finally became eligible to play, but then missed November with an ankle injury.
He's a player with a ton of talent. He really has all the ability in the world, but at this point, there's some things off the field that he's got to kind of shore up before I think he can prove himself as a consistent player in this league.
2nd and 12. Wilson floating corner of the end zone, but out of the reach of Jimmy Graham. Michael Wilhoit was beaten, but Wilson missed him, and it's third down.
If I'm the 49ers, I make sure I find a way of not matching up Michael Wilhoit on Jimmy Graham. I mean, that was just a missed layup. You've got to devote at least 2 people to Jimmy Graham in this area of the field, especially if you're thinking about trying to cover him with the linebacker. The 49ers were extremely lucky.
Graham comes out on third down.
It's a Doug Baldwin time.
Wilson under pressure, gets rid of it, incomplete. It was Ronald Blair who had a huge sack down the stretch in LA last week, forcing the errant throw, and the 49ers defense forces the field goal.
And check out this side of the defensive front. Knows the bust through. There's Ronald Blair. He's the rookie out of Appalachian State, but DeForest Buckner was coming there as well. If you look at Russell Wilson, he was trying to get it to Baldwin. Couldn't quite get enough on that one. Good job by the 49ers defense, though, stepping up, forcing the field goal.
Nolan Freeze is in there to snap it. Shannon reported earlier he was dealing with an ankle injury. Hauschka hits the field goal, and the lead is 8. Well, last Monday, the 49ers teamed up with Visa for the 10th year in a row to host the annual Visa Shop for the Player event. Provided 49ers players with Visa prepaid cards to use at Dick's Sporting Goods, and they were able to help local youth purchase $1,500 in sporting equipment for each of the after-school programs. A really nice thing that become an annual thing with the NFL and Visa. America's Game of the Week rolls on. 22-14 Seattle. Keep in mind, this would be a 2-possession game if not for a blocked extra point on Seattle's last touchdown. But it remains a 1-possession game late in the third. Short kick taken at the 10. And returned up to the 30. That's Raheem Mostert making his NFL debut today, dragging the defender to the 35. San Francisco got off to the dominant start today, had a 14-3 lead, and the total yards after a quarter, 155-10, but the script flipped since.
It's been the pressure from the Seattle Seahawks defensive front, at least the last drive. Saw how much trouble was giving Colin Kaepernick just trying to find someone downfield.
First and 10 at the 35-yard line.
San Francisco needs to get back to running the football. They started out this game running it very effectively, and they've gotten away from it.
From the 35-yard line, it's drone and nowhere to go with Tony McDaniel plugging it. A short gain, it's second down, and we check in with Carissa Thompson for a game break.
Thank you, Joe. To Washington we go. It's been a rough day for the Redskins, but Dustin Hopkins finally has them on the board with this 32-yard field goal. They still trail 10-3. Remember, if Washington wins, they're in. Of course, that's assuming the Packers and Lions don't tie later this evening. Joe?
All right, Carissa, and so 49ers or Seahawks fans begin to look at that and some other games to see who they may play as the 3 or the 4 seed, with Atlanta up big on New Orleans. Drone had no chance. Michael Bennett with his second big play of this second half, and it's 3rd and long.
And boy, has he been a difference maker for this team when you look at Michael Bennett and his ability to be able to get penetration off the snap of the football. He's so versatile. He can play DN, he can play inside. It's almost a pass rush specialist at defensive tackle. That's actually where he's lined up on this 3rd down.
And 14. Straight 4-man rush. It's Harper, needs the 45 and gets the 44, and at least gives Chip Kelly the option of going for this if he wants to roll the dice again. Nope, he'll send the punt team out.
Both teams today have really struggled on 3rd down. San Francisco's 2 of 9 with that last play, and Seattle hasn't been much better. They're 1 for 7 on the day. I mean, they've really just capitalized off turnovers and big plays that have helped set up their scores.
Good high punt from Pinion and a fair catch from Sherman at the 13-yard line. Seattle has it again on the other side of this break.
Today's game is sponsored by Burger King. Try the $3.99 Whopper Jr. deal only at BK.
Well, if both scores or all three scores in this window remain the same, Atlanta wins, Seattle wins, New York wins, then the Packers would be the team heading to Seattle next week if they lost tonight to the Lions.
Oh, we're not going to get into the whole Tampa Bay Buccaneers scenario.
Jeez.
Let's get it.
Hurt my head looking at those graphs. Yeah, a short gain on first down. San Francisco rallies. So the only way for the 2 seed for Seattle entering the day was if Atlanta lost to New Orleans, but a 38-13 lead in Atlanta right now for the Falcons. That means 1, 2, and 5 are all set. Cowboys, Falcons, and Giants. With a win, the Seahawks would be the 3. With a loss, they'd be the 4 against New York. So basically what it's looking like it's going to break down to be Seattle will host the loser of Detroit and Green Bay.
Which, if that's the case, I would imagine you'd be rooting for the Packers. You'd much rather play the Lions than the Packers, at least at this point in the season.
Yeah, outside of the Cowboys, I'm not sure there's a team you'd want to face less than Green Bay right now. Kurtz can't hang on. Knocked out of there by Johnson, and a chance for San Francisco to have shifted the field position here with one more stop.
Third down for the Seahawks.
And if you're Seattle, we talked about trying to get some momentum going as they go into the playoffs, as it's looking unlikely that they'll have a first-round bye. You got to start to get some guys going. I mean, Doug Baldwin's their leading receiver coming into this game. He only has 2 receptions. Now, he's the guy that, I'm not saying you have to force the football too, but you've got some different things in your playbook to be able to find ways of getting him some catches. There he is.
Good coverage downfield. Wilson lets it go. It's Baldwin or it's Kurtz running out there, but it's out in front of him, and it's 4th down.
Wilson's pass intended for Kurtz is incomplete.
Well, credit the 49ers defense. The job that they have done in coverage downfield on the Seattle Seahawks and really bottling up Russell Wilson for the most part today. Besides a couple times they've gotten some big plays to Jimmy Graham and Doug Baldwin. They've done the job, and they've forced the Seattle Seahawks team now to go to only convert 1 3rd down on the day.
And this is snapped over the head of John Ryan and a safety. Special teams nightmare down the stretch for Seattle. Nolan Freeze, who had a high snap on the missed extra point against Arizona, sails this one over Ryan.
This wasn't even close. I mean, John Ryan's a good athlete. He's the type of guy that can kind of return or at least make a fake as a punter, but he can't get up that high to get that football.
And the rookie from Houston, who Shannon Spake told us earlier is dealing with an ankle injury, sails that thing out of the back of the end zone. It's a 6-point game, and the 49ers are set to get it back. It's a 9-5-1 team that's going to the postseason for the 5th season in a row, but there's so many signs like this that this is not the same Seahawks team.
Well, they just haven't been able to put together a complete game. And that means on offense, defense, and special teams, they haven't really come out and demonstrated having one of those performances where you kind of walked away saying, yeah, they've got that Super Bowl winning mentality right now. They're able to play to that caliber. They've got the talent. They just, for whatever reason, haven't been able to put it all together this season, whether it's injuries and missing a guy like Earl Thomas on defense or not having a stable running back there. But on special teams, there's not much of an excuse.
John Ryan doesn't have to rely on a snap for this one. Jeremy Curley from the 15 to the 26. Coverage teams have been the one solid spot today for Seattle on special teams. Fox's football coverage doesn't end when the games are over. Afterwards, stick around for the OT. Kurt, Terry, Howie, Michael, and Jimmy bring you expert analysis, extended highlights, exclusive interviews. It's America's #1 post-game show. The OT, sponsored by Lowe's, coming up after the game, only on Fox. So a little bit of life for the 49ers after the safety in a 6-point game with his offense coming back out, searching for some life of its own. Monster first quarter, nothing since. Play action on first down. Kaepernick finds a window. There is a flag down at the line of scrimmage as Smelter takes it to the 48.
Well, and I'm wondering if DeAndre Smelter wasn't hedging. And that's one of the things they could be looking at here when you look at the way he came in motion.
Illegal formation, offense. The wideout on the left side covered up the tight end. By rule, he must be uncovered. 5-yard penalty remains first down. Repeat first down.
Well, there only has to be a blade of grass in between being on and off the line of scrimmage, but I believe they're talking about the tight end right here. See how he's covering up the tight end? He's got to be off the football in order for that to be a legal formation. Otherwise, he cannot release down the field.
And that negates a 25-yard play, the biggest play for the 49ers in a while. First down and 15 to the 22. Try to get something back with Sean Drone, and he does get a gain of 4 to the 26. Second and 11.
Excuse me, I should go back and say one of the two had to be off the ball.
Yeah.
In that particular case. Didn't just have to be the slot, but because the tight end was covered up and he released downfield, that then made him ineligible. So their formation would thus be illegal.
Tough sledding for Drone, less than 2 yards per carry today. 49er offense has been big on the ground this season, but that's been because of Carlos Hyde, who's out today with a sprained MCL. On second down, Kaepernick looks to throw. Over the middle, a wide open man and a drop, and no signal yet. Now there it is, incomplete. Burbridge had it in his hands, couldn't hang on, and then Wagner nearly picked it.
Look how close that was. I mean, Burbridge had an opportunity. Colin Kaepernick didn't lead him. Ball seemed to be a little bit behind. Caused Burbridge to slow up his momentum as the ball's being tipped around. Look how close that is. Bobby Wagner just couldn't get a hand underneath. But once again, 3rd and long. How many times have we seen both teams today in 3rd and long?
49ers are 2 of 9. Kaepernick facing pressure and going down back at the 18. Everybody coming after him that time. Clark was there. Wagner was there. So is Wright. And 4th down and a mile for the 49ers.
When you bring pressure like the Seahawks do, watch all the bodies that end up coming around the line of scrimmage. What happens is the San Francisco 49ers pass protection gets on different levels, and it allows guys to find seams within that protection to be able to then get to the quarterback.
4th sack of the day for Seattle. Pinion to punt. That's nearly blocked. It was Doug Baldwin off of the edge this time, and Richard Sherman with a fair catch at the 28.
He's lived up to his promise. He's only returned one today. You look at Doug Baldwin. How about that? A guy who's leading the team in receptions and in yards, and he still goes out there on punt rush. He's still trying to get after it on special teams. He'll be coming off the left side of your screen. The move he gave. It was almost like he's working against press coverage as a wide receiver. But you look at the special teams for the Seahawks. I mean, they've got a number of starters that kind of mix in, and they take pride in it.
There's so many guys on the team that had to do that earlier in their careers to even stick in the NFL, like Baldwin, undrafted out of Stanford. It's become so much more than a guy that needs to do that, chooses to at this point. First down from the 33, and a boot for Wilson, who has an open man and drops it in to Brandon Williams for only his 2nd reception of the season. 22 yards and a first down to the 48.
Williams almost redeeming himself. When you watch him kind of release up, there will get a high-low on the flat defender to that side of the field, but you mentioned only a 2nd catch. He's primarily used on special teams and really for run blocking. He's actually the guy that allowed the block punt last week versus Arizona.
Another play action pass. Wilson gets rid of it. Incomplete. Carl Bradford forcing the throwaway. We check in again with Carissa.
Thanks, Joe. KC, San Diego, the Chiefs already up 27-17 when Tyreek Hill does this. A 95-yard punt return for a touchdown. The Chiefs lead 34-17. Remember, if they win and the Raiders lose, KC is the 2 seed and Oakland would be the 5th. The Raiders losing big right now to the Broncos. Joe?
Unbelievable the difference that Tyreek Hill has made for Kansas City this year. Not only in the return game, but even on offense with the different things that he can do. He's made them a legit contender in the AFC.
Here's Collins with a big hole on second down. Alex Collins rolling inside the 30 to the 26. 24 yards for the rookie out of Arkansas.
Number 36, Alex Colin, the ball carrier.
Finally, they get a burst in the running game. They've been looking for it all day. They haven't found it from Rawls, and really Wilson hasn't been able to get it going, but it's Alex Collins now with the big play. Maybe this will spark some momentum. The things you got to like of Alex Collins as a rookie coming out of Arkansas, he's got good vision. He's able to kind of see that backside cut. That was what he was able to do in the last play.
Pete Carroll thought last week was his best game as a pro. Ran for 28 yards with Rawls hobbled with a shoulder injury. J.D. McKissick comes in here. Wilson spots him, swinging out of the backfield. And McKissick cut down at the 20 by Reeser.
It's week 17 NFL football. You get guys who really haven't stepped up, haven't done much at this point in the season, like Brandon Williams or McKissick, but you're now seeing them play a big factor in this game.
The Seahawks going to need those guys in the playoffs to get this running game, they hope, going some. They'd love to get C.J. Procise back at some point, too. Second down and 4. Richardson going the other way, out the back door for a first down. Kind of plays they had designed previously for Tyler Lockett, who's lost for the season with a broken ankle. And so Richardson, who you mentioned earlier, battled injuries himself into a more significant role.
5-yard gain on the play. First and 10 at the 49ers, 15-yard line.
And look at how young the Seahawks are. A lot of building blocks. I mean, this is, you talked about, trying to get the 10 wins for the 5th season in a row. You talk about the fact that they can sustain this because they've kept so many core pieces as far as re-signing guys like Bennett and Wilson and Wagner and Sherman, but got a lot of young guys stepping up too.
Wilson tripped over one of his own linemen and went down back at the 21. And that will bring this third quarter to a close with Seattle out in front 22-16. It's not been pretty. They're trying to wrap up the 3 seed, it appears, at this point in the NFC playoffs. Back to America's Game of the Week in a moment. Start of the fourth quarter here in Santa Clara, Levi's Stadium, Week 17. Seattle with a 22-16 lead on San Francisco. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Shannon Spake, and our rules expert Mike Pereira back in Los Angeles. Second down, 16. Happy New Year, by the way. Get into work mode this weekend. You kind of forget it's a holiday, but Happy New Year. Start of 2017. Wilson looks to throw out of a collapsing pocket. Able to turn his shoulders and heave that thing out of bounds. Pressure coming off both edges. Ronald Blair forced the throwaway and made it third down and long.
Ronald Blair has had himself a day, but one thing that you're starting to see again is the offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks get a little bit exposed. The longer this game's gone on, we've seen more and more pressure put on Russell Wilson. That was the exact opposite of last week, where they struggled early, and then late in the game, they kind of found the rhythm protecting Wilson.
So opposite in the stages of the game it came in, but consistent, and that they've been totally inconsistent.
And this ball's got to go to the end zone. It's going to be tough, though. San Francisco's playing a lot of soft coverage.
They're going to use a timeout. With that play clock winding out. Second one used by Seattle.
Their second. A 30-second timeout.
So it looks like Trent Baalke has confirmed that he's been fired as the GM. Chip Kelly's future still not totally official. Time for a game break, though. We go to Carissa Thompson in L.A.
Thanks, Joe. Giants, Redskins. Redskins trailing 10-3 midway through the fourth quarter when Jordan Reed comes up huge for his team. We're all tied up at 10. Redskins, of course, make the playoffs with the win. Joe?
All right, and then put the pressure on Packers-Lions tonight. In that case, the loser, if the Redskins were to win that game, the loser of the Lions-Packers game would miss the postseason.
Can we not play out the Bucs scenario now that game's in a tie?
No, we're going to
that was one of the pieces.
On third down, they throw a screen. Richardson exploding, but pulled down by Brock. Tremaine Brock with a tackle at the 10, fourth down.
A touchdown saving tackle. I mean, without Brock being able to redirect himself to get back and make that play, Richardson had green grass, some blockers out there for him. Watch the speed once Paul Richardson gets the football. You see George Faint getting upfield, and you had Golinsky as well. I mean, that's one thing about the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. They've struggled at times to kind of get down some of those key parts, but they're all athletic. That's why they've been able to transition from sometimes playing defense to then offense. Before they got to Seattle, or playing basketball if you're George Fant.
28-yarder, and hasn't been a sure thing lately, but it's down the middle here. And the lead is back to 2 scores for Pete Carroll's bunch.
Today's game is sponsored by Microsoft Surface, the official tablet of the NFL.
Fun way to celebrate the new year with an NFL game here in Santa Clara. We welcome you from down below back inside. Happy New Year, Brady. I think this
Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you. This one has been a little more entertaining than Seahawks fans would have liked. A little more entertaining than I think we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and really, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're kind of looking for your team to now pull away. You've got this game now to within it's a 2-score game, and if you're the 49ers, I think at this point, given the fact that you're locked into that number 2 spot in the draft, I think you'd want your team to fight back and come back into this game, given that you don't have the first pick in the draft to really worry about trying to compete for.
That will be the Browns, lost in overtime today to Pittsburgh. Just 1 week away from the start of the NFL playoffs, and our coverage begins with an NFC wildcard matchup next Sunday here on Fox. So it will be 4 against 5 or 3 against 6 in that matchup, and if the Seahawks hang on here, they will be the 3. As far as who they'll play, well, if Washington comes back and pulls off the comeback against the Giants, it would be Washington. If they lost, the Seahawks as the 3 seed would play the loser of tonight's Lions-Packers game.
That's also assuming that the Packers and Lions don't tie, because that's a scenario where the Redskins would be able to then, no, they wouldn't make it in. Both teams would make it in.
Yes, both Packers and Lions and a tie. They flip it off underneath to Sean Drone, trying to get something going. He gets 3, and it's 2nd and 7. Those
play was a forward pass.
Those tables where you look at the different scenarios, if you study them too hard, it can make your head hurt.
Well, let's do this. Why don't we just adopt the playoff rule and not have overtime? Not have it be the possibility of a tie.
Yeah,
just make it so you can only win. You don't have to worry about all this.
'49ers led this game at one point, 14-3. 22 of the last 26, or 22 of the last 24 scored by Seattle. As Drone carries it for a first down to the 43. Only averaging about 2.5 yards per carry today, San Francisco is.
10-yard gain, 1st and 10 at the 38.
Drone hit in the backfield. Stopped just past the line of scrimmage. KJ Wright, and there with the Taba Rubin.
You look at the 3rd down conversion rate really for both teams. They've struggled. And it's been because on 1st down, neither team has really been able to get much going in the running game. It's almost like a wasted down. You keep finding them in 2nd and long for both teams.
Drone, no chance chance to get going. Ataba Rubin was in there first, and Wagner the beneficiary.
A 3-yard loss on the play. 3rd and 12 at the 49ers.
The Seahawks defense putting the clamps on the 49ers, which had a couple of long drives during that first half. Unable to generate any traction here in the second half. And down 9 with under 12. Colin Kaepernick trying to lead a fourth quarter comeback for the second week in a row. And looking at a 4-man rush. Throws behind Chris Harper, who can't get away from Richard Sherman. 4th and 4.
And 3rd and 12, there's just not much that you can call. And you can do one of two things. You can try to throw short, see if they get a catch and run, and that's what they attempted here with Chris Harper underneath. And Richard Sherman obviously finds a way of getting Harper down on the ground. Or you can throw a screen or something of that nature, but it's really an uphill battle. If you don't win on 1st and 2nd down, you keep finding yourself in 3rd and long, you're going to find yourself punting the football a lot. That's something that the San Francisco 49ers have done the most of any team this season.
Another one for Bradley Pinion. This one not as good. Sherman waves off the blockers. It's dangerously close to Nico Thorpe down there and bounds out of bounds inside the 10. Back to Santa Clara in a moment. Michael Bennett and the Seahawks on the verge of a 6th consecutive win over San Francisco. They begin this drive with an Alex Collins run, and he fights forward for a pickup of 4. Antoine Bethea with a stop. It would actually be a 7th consecutive win if you include the NFC Championship game from a few years ago. And my, have these teams gone in separate directions since that day.
And you look at how they got here. Whether you want to put it on the change of coaching staff, but the one constant was Trent Baalke. And he's the general manager who has been fired with the 49ers. Look at the roster, and just to begin the year, they already had to overcome so much, lack of talent, lack of a lot of things.
Big hole for Collins over the right side of that line. 1st down to the 22. And a new career high for Alex Collins. 17 yards on that carry, 47 total. And Trevon Boykin, the rookie from TCU, replaces Russell Wilson at quarterback. His 2nd action in the NFL, both times coming against the 49ers.
And he played well. It was 4-6, had a touchdown pass. So I think we kind of felt like at some point in this game we'd see Boykin, whether Atlanta had won or lost, if Seattle then got control of this game.
Boykin pulls. That's what he did a lot at TCU. And strung out to the sideline. Last time in Seattle in that blowout win, 7 of 9. Had a touchdown. An interception as well. Boykin, originally from Dallas, and went to TCU as a receiver and running back. Eventually back to quarterback. He was one of the best in the country towards the end of his college career for Gary Patterson's team.
This was a position of concern. You know, Boykin was signed as a free agent.
Lost it and got back on it. Nearly a disaster.
Talk about cause for concern. Yeah, this was a position of concern, really. As mobile as Russell Wilson is, as many issues as they've had protecting the quarterback. Let's see. I think it comes out the back end as he goes to release it. And look, I've been there before. You start to get, at this point in the season, it's a little bit more chillier than maybe a 53, 55, whatever it is right now tells you. That ball all of a sudden starts to get a little bit slick in your hand as your hands start to get cold. Standing on the sidelines for 3 quarters, it's not easy.
Don't deal with too many cold weather games down at TCU. That goes through Richardson's hands. And 4th down quickly. So right after Russell Wilson moves them out of their own end. 3 plays and a punt. And the 49ers set to get decent field position here, down 2 scores with 8:18 to go.
Another thing is, if you feel like you're locked in to the position that you're in now, they're not necessarily locked in. They could be 4, could be 3. But it also helps to get Boykin some experience, get him some live game reps in case anything ever did happen to Russell Wilson.
Colin Free snapped the last one over John Ryan's head. This one's spot on. And a line drive punt will give Curley a chance. Setting up a trick play. He throws it back to Raheem Mostert, who gets a block and another inside the 40. 28-yard return. Curley to Mostert. You said it earlier. On a day like this, you figure there might be some trickery from Chip Kelly.
Why not? I mean, literally, you have nothing to lose at this point. You're locked into your draft position. Whether or not you have job security come tomorrow, who knows? But at this point, what's there to lose? Let's look at this block on Brandon Williams. That clearly is a block in the back, and there's an official right there. Look, the fact of the matter is, when you talk to coaches, they'll tell you on any good punt return, usually there's a block in the back that someone missed. It's not always the case, but usually is the case. It's tough to see with all those bodies flying around.
So a 49ers offense that has 1 first down in the second half starts from the 35 with a Sean Drone run. And he spins his way to the 31. And a gain of 4. Kind of an awkward landing. And gingerly gets up.
And look, he's been the MVP for the 49ers today with 2 touchdowns already. Oof. You can see that's Joshua Garnett, as well as the Seahawks defensive lineman falling on the back of Drone's leg.
Already without Carlos Hyde, the near 1,000-yard rusher, hurt his MCL last week. So now it's DeJuan Harris.
Well, Drone plays a lot of special teams too, so it's not just the impact that has on offense, but also on special teams.
Wait, timeout. San Francisco. This is their second.
Have to burn one with that play clock winding down. We'll take the timeout with them.
Today's game is sponsored by Papa John's, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL.
49ers in danger of matching the worst record in franchise history, sitting at 2-13, down 9. In the closing minutes, perhaps the final game Colin Kaepernick plays in a 49ers uniform with an opt-out clause in his contract that was restructured earlier this year with an opt-out clause this offseason. Second down and 7. Raheem Mostert in a running back. Fakes it to him. Down the middle. Curley juggles and catches. First and goal, San Francisco. What extension for 27.
And what an impact he's been. He's going to come all the way across the formation, and it's the play-action pass fake that sucks up Bobby Wagner. You see him chasing down, trying to get back into coverage to disrupt it. But look at the one-handed extension and the focus and concentration to bring it into his body. How big time has he been for this team this year?
And the top guy outside all season long. First and goal from an empty set. Kaepernick on a quarterback draw with a flag down.
Kaepernick on the keeper, a flag on the field.
Holding. Offense number 65. 10-yard penalty. Replay first down.
That's the right guard, Joshua Garnett.
And just when they get something going, they get a holding penalty to take them 10 yards back. Seems like it's constantly an uphill battle, and if you're looking for bright spots, you know, the 49ers have actually been a good red zone team this year. They're 4th in the league coming into this game.
2 for 2 today with a pair of Sean Drone rushing touchdowns. But Drone leaving with an injury on this drive. Here comes Mostert inside the 10. Rookie from Purdue making his NFL debut today. Teed up good field position on this drive with a trick play on the punt return.
Last week's game versus the Rams, towards the end of the game. Colin Kaepernick started to take over with his legs. You got to wonder if he's starting to kind of feel the same sense of wanting to do the same.
Zips one, touchdown, Garrett Selleck. And the 49ers not dead yet.
Well, this is something they worked on. They want to try to push and act like he's going to the corner, and then he's going to come back and just sit. And you could see him use the leverage that he has because of him coming back to the football, but allows him to get his body in between the defender and the football. Well-designed play by Chip Kelly and his staff for San Francisco.
And you wonder if Russell Wilson is going to be called upon to go back in the game after Trevon Boykin came in, and 3 plays later they were punting, leading to this touchdown. And a 2-point game with 5:42 to go. San Francisco trying to rally from behind for the second week in a row. Seattle trying to hang on and carry momentum into the postseason. We were headed to break, but hold on a moment. We have some shoving and extracurricular with flags flying as well.
This is what happens at the end of the season. You got 2 teams playing a hard-fought game, but going in different directions. A lot of frustration on the part of the 49ers, and for the Seahawks, this is a team that is probably frustrated with the way they've performed this year in the sense of not playing the way they're capable of.
Tony Correnti getting in there, making sure that it didn't go any farther.
The extra point is good. After the action, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, defense number 90, and number 90 has been disqualified for his actions.
Jaron Reed, starting D-tackle, thrown out of the game. And Frank Clark and Reed get together. The Seahawks might be 9-5-1, but there have been times where they've simply looked in disarray this year. Frank Clark, second-year man out of Michigan, wasn't having any of Jaron Reed, the rookie out of Alabama, getting tossed from this game, and let him know about it.
Well, and this is some of the things that we've seen from the Seahawks sidelines. A lot of emotions, sometimes fireworks, fighting against one another, but at the end of the day, look, this is a close team, and I think they feel like they can police themselves and govern themselves, and sometimes let their emotions get the best of them, but at the end of the day, they still fight for one another.
Dawson trying to coffin corner this kickoff, and Paul Richardson pulled down at the 13. So let's go back to see if we can find out why Jaron Reed was thrown out of this game, number 90 in white.
It's going to be right here.
And it came late. I mean, we were almost in commercial.
I mean, Taba Rubin lands on top of Nelson. That maybe is what starts things. And then Reed starts to get in a bit of a shoving match towards the end, and I think things start to pile on.
Kicking team, number 29. Seattle has taken the opportunity to add the 5 yards to the end of the play. First down.
Yeah, so it obviously came after the shot we saw there. And it's Pete Carroll sticking with Trevon Boykin. What do you think?
I mean, look, as far as preparing this young man for these sorts of situations later on in his career, I guess it's smart if you're not concerned about being the 3 or 4 seed, since you're going to be hosting that wild card game. And at this point, it's not like you know who that matchup is going to be against. So maybe they feel like there's a better chance that they'd rather go up against the Giants if something happens here.
Yep, and right now, again, what you're looking at basically is with the loss, you're the 4 seed hosting the Giants. With a win, you're the 3 seed hosting the loser, the Packers-Lions. From the 19-yard line. Boykin on the roll. Throws it away. 2nd and 10.
Well, there's no one there, and I think in this position, given the fact that you have the lead, as good as your defense has played this year, you don't take care of the football. We already saw the first series. That disastrous play almost happened when he lost the football trying to throw a screen pass. So I don't think Trevon Boykin's going to force the football here. I think he's going to be wise with it. And make sure he takes calculated chances when he does.
On 2nd and 10, it's Collins. Stopped right away by Chris Jones. He was the first to get a hold of him. Glenn Dorsey was there as well. And a big 3rd down coming up for the Seahawks with 5+ left.
That brings up a 3rd down.
You have to understand, too, who Trevon Boykin's working with. You know, at this point, there's some backups in there at wide receiver as well. So it's not as if they have their starting group out there. If you're looking at matchups and guys they want to try to work towards. Now, Paul Richardson's the guy. If I was down here, that's what I'd be throwing towards.
Boykin, short side, on target for a 1st down to Tanner McAvoy. His first catch of the game is a big one. Up to the 30-yard line to keep this drive rolling.
It's only his 8th of the season. Look at all the cushion, though. We already saw the injury earlier to Rashad Robinson, so that's Dante Johnson, the backup, playing in replace. Good job by McAvoy. We'll show a little burst off the ball that kind of kept Johnson on his heels. Didn't allow him to break on the football.
Try and grind away with that offensive line now. Here comes Collins bouncing to the outside and then foot in the ground for a yard.
Collins the ball carrier. Bradford in on the stop. 2nd and 8. 32-yard line.
'49ers a franchise record 13-game losing streak this year. Snapped last week with a 4th quarter comeback against LA. Trying to do the same today. On 2nd and 8. Boykin against pressure. Steps into it and throws close to the marker for McAvoy again. It'll be 3rd and 1.
Well, it looks like Boykin has picked his horse and he's working to him. He's feeding McAvoy right now. And like, as a backup quarterback, there's going to be guys who you feel most comfortable with that you get to work with on the scout team or, you know, throughout the course of practice if you get any sort of reps with the offense. And clearly McAvoy is the guy that Boykin has worked with the most and feels most confident in at this point in the game.
3rd and 1, and Brady, Seattle's 2 of 11 on 3rd down today.
How about this Boykin under center? You don't see that very often out of this Seattle offense, especially with the zone read scheme they run.
Fake to Collins. Boykin looks to throw. Across his body, 1st down, Luke Wilson. Doing his best Russell Wilson impression, avoiding pressure and moving the chains with a completion to the 46.
San Francisco.
San Francisco uses
timeout of regulation.
Its last timeout.
And just when you think they're going to run the football because it's 3rd and inches, they run the boot. And if not for the hesitation by Boykin to get around Glenn Dorsey, they wouldn't have any room. What a heads-up play by Boykin to be able to get outside and then remain calm. Not get flustered, not panic, and still have vision inside to see Wilson. Look at this release. Little sidearm. Look at Russell. He's like, yeah, I do that too. You learned it from me. He's taught him well.
And after a 1 for 10 start on 3rd down today, they've converted back-to-back 3rd downs. With 3:08 to go, 49ers out of timeouts, run out of chances to get a stop. But the Seahawks helping them in that cause here. And again, the teams come together.
Getting real chippy out there, Joe.
False start. Offense, number 72. 5-yard penalty. Remains 1st down.
I think he means 76, Jermaine Afidi. And looks like it was Justin Britt who may have upset some of the Michael Wilhoit and Chris Jones for San Francisco. Look at Britt picking up Michael Wilhoit.
It's a strong man.
He's been one of the constants on this offensive line, starting all 15 games coming into this week.
1st and 15. Collins a cutback. Stopped by Keith Reeser on a gain of 4 to the 45, where it'll be 2nd down and 11. And they can run that clock down to 2:20 or so before snapping it on this 2nd down play. It was 14-3 San Francisco early in this game. Seattle taking advantage of a pair of San Francisco turnovers to take the lead late in the first half, and they've held on to it. Boykin tosses it for Reese in the flats, and the fullback has a 1st down inside the 40. Marcel Reese, who was picked up in early December by Seattle, goes for 17.
Well, Boykin just showing off the fact that he's a gamer.
A 19-yard gain on the play. 1st and 10 from 49ers, 36-yard line.
We welcome those of you joining us from across the country here to Santa Clara, where the Seahawks trailed this game 14-3 early, but have come from behind and have a 25-23 lead as we near the 2-minute warning. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Shannon Spake, and Mike Pereira. Russell Wilson came out of the game a few minutes back, with Pete Carroll electing to get Trevon Boykin into the game, get him some work. 2-minute warning in Santa Clara. Back in a moment.
Today's game is sponsored by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Seattle with a win, looking at a 3 seed. With a loss, would be a 4 seed against the Giants. 2nd down from the 36, and Boykin booting. Green grass in front of it. And Boykin smartly stays in bounds and gets to the 26 with close to enough for a 1st down. This was a 22-14 game during the 3rd quarter with the Seahawks in front, but some special teams issues. A snap over the head of Ryan and a safety cut the deficit to 6, but the Seahawks on the move again. Set up a field goal for Hauschka. 49ers, though, refused to go away. This circus catch from Curley set up a touchdown as Kaepernick zipped one to the end zone for Selleck. And then, as we mentioned prior to the 2-minute warning, Russell Wilson leaving the game. Trevon Boykin coming in, getting some valuable snaps, perhaps, in the worst-case scenario as they move into the playoffs. And he can now run the clock out. And Seattle will be looking at a 3 seed, assuming Atlanta hangs on against New Orleans.
And if you're looking at this game and you're a Seahawks fan looking into the playoffs, obviously you're excited about the win, but there's still some concerns. You know, you're looking at this team, you want to try to get Rawls to around, 100 yards rushing or so. Talked to Pete Carroll before the game, said we'd like to give it to him 20 times, but in order to do that, you have to be successful running the football. He only got 8 carries today for 14 yards, so not having that running game is still a concern. I thought they protected Russell Wilson better than last week versus Arizona when they gave up 6 sacks. But in large part, you've got to look right now at yourself if you're the Seattle Seahawks and be concerned, especially about special teams. The snap over John Ryan's head, the field goal issues. There's definitely some concerns as you head into the playoffs.
There's 2:20 left down in